The Journey to the West. 14. Mind Monkey returns to the right. The 6 robbers vanish from sight. Mind is the Buddha, and the Buddha is mind. Both mind and Buddha are important things. If you perceive there's neither mind nor thing, yours is the Dharmakaya of true mind. The Dharmakaya has no shape or form. One pearl-like radiance holding myriad things. The bodiless body is the body true, and real form is that form which has no form. There's no form, no void, no emptiness, no coming, no leaving, no parinamana, no contrast, no sameness, no being or non-being, no giving, no taking, no hopeful craving. Light efficacious is in and out the same. Buddha's whole realm is in a grain of sand. A grain of sand the Chiliocosm holds. One mind or body's like 10,000 things. To know this, you must grasp the no-mind spell. Unclogged and taintless is the karma pure. Don't do the many acts of good or ill. This is true submission to Shakyamuni. We were telling you about Tripitaka and Bokin, who, in fear and alarm, again heard the cry, "My master has come." The various houseboys said, "It must be the old ape in that stone box beneath the mountain who is shouting." "It's he! It's he!" said the guardian. Tripitaka asked, "Who is this old ape?" "The ancient name of this mountain," said the guardian, "was the Mountain of 5 Phases. It was changed to the Mountain of the 2 Frontiers as a result of our great Tang ruler's western campaigns to secure his empire. A few years ago, I heard from my elders that during the time when Wang Mang usurped the throne of the Han Emperor, this mountain fell from heaven with a divine monkey clamped beneath it. He feared neither heat nor cold, and he took neither food nor drink. He had been watched and guarded by the spirits of the earth, who fed him iron balls when he was hungry, and juices of bronze when he was thirsty. He has lasted from that time until now, surviving both cold and hunger. He must be the one who is making all this noise. Don't be afraid, Elder. Let's go down the mountain to take a look." Tripitaka had to agree, and led his horse down the mountain. They had traveled only a few miles when they came upon a stone box, in which there was indeed a monkey, who, with his head sticking out, was waving his hands wildly and crying, "Master, why have you taken so long to get here? Welcome. Welcome. Get me out, and I'll protect you on your way to the Western Heaven." The priest went forward to look more closely at him. "How does he look?" you ask. A pointed mouth and hollow cheeks, 2 diamond pupils and fiery eyes. Lichens had piled on his head. Wisteria grew in his ears. By his temples was more green grass than hair. Beneath his chin, moss instead of a beard. With mud on his brow and earth in his nose, he looked most desperate. His fingers' coarse and calloused palms were caked in filth and dirt. Luckily, his eyes could still roll about, and the apish tongue articulate. Though in speech he had great ease, his body he could not move. He was the great sage son of 500 years ago. Today his ordeal ends. He leaves heaven's net. Undeniably a courageous person, that guardian Lu went up to the creature and pulled away some of the grass at his temples and some of the moss beneath his chin. He asked, "What do you have to say?" "Nothing to you," said the monkey. "But ask that master to come up here. I have a question for him." "What's your question?" asked Tripitaka. "Are you someone sent by the great king of the land of the east to go seek scriptures in the Western Heaven?" asked the monkey. "I am," said Tripitaka. "Why do you ask?" "I am the great sage, equal to heaven," said the monkey. who greatly disturbed the heavenly palace 500 years ago. Because of my sin of rebellion and disobedience, I was imprisoned here by the Buddha. Some time ago, a certain Bodhisattva Guanyin had received the decree of Buddha to go to the land of the East in quest of a scripture pilgrim. I asked her to give me some help, and she persuaded me not to engage again in violence. I was told to believe in the law of Buddha and faithfully to protect the scripture pilgrim on his way to worship Buddha in the West, for there would be a goodly reward reserved for me when such merit is achieved. I have therefore been maintaining my vigilance night and day, waiting for the Master to come to rescue me. I'm willing to protect you in your quest of scriptures and become your disciple." When Tripitaka heard these words, he was filled with delight and said, "Though you have this good intention, thanks to the Bodhisattva's instruction of entering our Buddhist fold, I have neither axe nor drill. How can I free you?" "No need for axe or drill," said the monkey. "If you are willing to rescue me, I'll be able to get out." Tripitaka said, I'm willing, but how can you get out?" "On top of this mountain," said the monkey. "There is a tag stamped with the golden letters of our Buddha Tathagata. Go up there and lift up the tag. Then I'll come out." Tripitaka agreed and turned to Boken, imploring him, "Guardian, come with me up the mountain." "Do you think he's speaking the truth?" asked Boken. "It's the truth," the monkey shouted. "I dare not lie." Boken had no choice but to call his houseboys to lead the horses. He himself supported Tripitaka with his hands, and they again started up the tall mountain. Tugging at creepers and vines, they finally arrived at the highest peak, where they beheld 10,000 shafts of golden light and 1,000 folds of hallowed air. There was a huge square slab of stone, on which was taped a seal with the golden letters, Om Mani Padme Hum. Tripitaka approached the stone and knelt down. He looked at the golden letters and kowtowed several times to the stone. Then, facing the west, he prayed. "Your disciple, Chen Xuanzang, was specifically commanded to seek scriptures from you. If it is so ordained that he should be my disciple, let me lift up those golden letters so that the divine monkey may find release and join me at the spirit. Mountain, if he is not predestined to be my disciple, if he is only a cruel monster trying to deceive me and to bring misfortune to our enterprise, let me not lift up this tape." He kowtowed again after he had prayed. Going forward, with the greatest of ease he took down the golden letters. A fragrant wind swept by immediately and blew the tag out of his hands into the air as a voice called out, "I am the prison guard of the great sage. Today his ordeal is completed, and my colleagues and I are returning this seal to Tathagata." Tripitaka, Boken and their followers were so terrified that they fell on the ground and bowed toward the sky. They then descended from the tall mountain and came back to the stone box, saying to the monkey, "The tag has been lifted. You may come out." Delighted, the monkey said, "Master, you had better walk away from here so that I can come out. I don't want to frighten you." When Boshin heard this, he led Tripitaka and the rest of the company to walk back eastward for 5 or 6 miles. Again they heard the monkey yelling, "Further still! Further still!" So Tripitaka and the others went still further until they had left the mountain. All at once came a crash so loud that it was as if the mountain was cracking and the earth splitting wide open. Everyone was awestruck. The next moment, the monkey was already in front of Tripitaka's horse. Completely naked, he knelt down and cried, "Master, I'm out!" He bowed 4 times toward Tripitaka, and then, jumping up, he said to Bokin respectfully, "I thank Elder Brother for taking the trouble of escorting my master. I'm grateful also for your shaving the grass from my face." Having thanked him, he went at once to put the luggage in order, so that it could be tied onto the horse's back. When the horse saw him, its torso slackened and its legs stiffened. In fear and trembling, it could hardly stand up. For you see, that monkey had been a ban-horse plague, who used to look after dragon horses in the celestial stables. His authority was such that horses of this world inevitably would fear him when they saw him. When Tripitaka saw that the monkey was truly a person of good intentions, someone who truly resembled those who had embraced the Buddhist faith, he called to him, "Disciple, what is your surname?" "My surname is Sun," said the Monkey King. "Let me give you a religious name," said Tripitaka, "so that it will be convenient to address you." "This noble thought of the master is deeply appreciated," said the Monkey King, "but I already have a religious name. I'm called Sun Wukong." "It exactly fits the emphasis of our denomination," said Tripitaka, delighted. "But look at you. You look rather like a little Duta. Let me give you a nickname and call you Pilgrim Sun. How's that?" "Good, good," said Wukong. So from then on, he was also called Pilgrim Sun. When Bokin saw that Pilgrim Sun was definitely preparing to leave, he turned to speak respectfully to Tripitaka, saying, "Elder, you are fortunate to have made an excellent disciple here. Congratulations. This person should be most fit to accompany you. I must take leave of you now." Bowing to thank him, Tripitaka said, "I cannot thank you enough for all your kindness. Please be certain to thank your dear mother and wife when you return to your house. I have caused you all great inconvenience, and I shall thank you again on my way back." Bokin returned his salutation, and they parted. We shall now tell you about Pilgrim Sun, who asked Tripitaka to mount his horse. He himself, stark naked, carried the luggage on his back and led the way. In a little while, as they were passing the mountain of 2 frontiers, they saw a fierce tiger approaching, growling and waving its tail. Tripitaka, sitting on his horse, became alarmed, but Pilgrim, walking at the side of the road, was delighted. "Don't be afraid, master," he said, "for he's here to present me with some clothes." He put down the luggage and took a tiny needle out of his ears, one wave of it facing the wind, and it became an iron rod with the thickness of a rice bowl. He held it in his hands and laughed, saying, "I haven't used this treasure for over 500 years. Today I'm taking it out to bag a little garment for myself." "Look at him!" He strode right up to the tiger, crying, "Cursed beast! Where do you think you're going?" Crouching low, the tiger lay prone on the dust and dared not move. Pilgrim Sun aimed the rod at its head, and one stroke caused its brain to burst out like 10,000 red petals of peach blossoms, and the teeth to fly out like so many pieces of white jade. So terrified was our Chen Xuanzang that he fell off his horse. "Oh God! Oh God!" he cried, biting his fingers. When Guardian Liu overcame that striped tiger the other day, he had to do battle with him for almost half a day, but without even fighting today, Sun Wukong reduces the tiger to pulp with one blow of his rod. How true is the saying, "For the strong, there's always someone stronger." "Master," said Pilgrim as he returned dragging the tiger, "sit down for a while and wait till I have stripped him of his clothes. When I put them on, we'll start off again." "Where does he have any clothes?" asked Tripitaka. "Don't mind me, master," said Pilgrim. "I have my own plan. austere monkey king. He pulled off one strand of hair and blew a mouthful of magic breath onto it, crying, "Change!" It changed into a sharp, curved knife, with which he ripped open the tiger's chest. Slitting the skin straight down, he then ripped it off in one piece. He chopped away the paws and the head, cutting the skin into one square piece. He picked it up and tried it for size, and then said, "It's a bit too large. One piece can be made into two." He took the knife and cut it again into two pieces. He put one of these away and wrapped the other around his waist. Ripping off a strand of rattan from the side of the road, he firmly tied on this covering for the lower part of his body. "Master," he said, "let's go. Let's go. When we reach someone's house, we will have sufficient time to borrow some threads and a needle to sew this up." He gave his iron rod a squeeze, and it changed back into a tiny needle, which he stored in his ear. Throwing the luggage on his back, he asked his master to mount the horse. As they set off, the monk asked him, "Wukong, how is it that the iron rod you used to slay the tiger has disappeared?" "Master," said Pilgrim, laughing, "you have no idea what that rod of mine really is. It was acquired originally from the Dragon Palace in the Eastern Ocean. It's called the precious divine iron for guarding the heavenly river, and another name of it is the compliant golden hooped rod. At the time when I revolted against heaven, I depended on it a great deal, for it could change into any shape or form, great or small, according to my wish. Just now, I had it changed into a tiny embroidery needle, and it's stored that way in my ear. When I need it, I'll take it out." Secretly pleased by what he heard, Tripitaka asked another question. "Why did that tiger become completely motionless when it saw you? How do you explain the fact that it simply let you hit it?" "To tell you the truth," said Wukong, "even a dragon, let alone this tiger, would behave itself if it had seen me. I, old monkey, possess the ability to subdue dragons and tame tigers, and the power to overturn rivers and stir up oceans. I can look at a person's countenance and discern his character. I can listen merely to sounds and discover the truth. If I want to be big, I can fill the universe. If I want to be small, I can be smaller than a piece of hair. In sum, I have boundless ways of transformation and incalculable means of becoming visible or invisible. What's so strange, then, about my skinning a tiger? Wait till we come to some real difficulties. You'll see my talents then." When Tripitaka heard these words, he was more relieved than ever and urged his horse forward. So master and disciple, the two of them, chatted as they journeyed, and soon the sun sank in the west. You see soft glow of the fading twilight and distant clouds slowly returning. On every hill swells the chorus of birds, flocking to shelter in the woods. The wild beasts in couples and pairs, in packs and groups they trek homeward. The new moon, hook-like, breaks the spreading gloom, with 10,000 stars luminous. Pilgrim said, "Master, let's move along, for it's getting late. There are dense clumps of trees over there, and I suppose there must be a house or village too. Let's hurry over there and ask for lodging." Urging his horse forward, Tripitaka went straight up to a house and dismounted. Pilgrim threw down the bag and went to the door, crying, "Open up! Open up!" An old man came to the door, leaning on a cane. When he pulled open the creaking door, he was panic-stricken by the hideous appearance of Pilgrim, who had the tiger skin around his waist and looked like a thunder god. He began to shout, "A ghost! A ghost!" and other such foolish words. Tripitaka drew near and took hold of him, saying, "Old patron, don't be afraid. He is my disciple, not a ghost." Only when he looked up and saw the handsome features of Ye by Cain Salvatawet. GT in Kielsa en. Niladian Norti Chiotstay for Savrik Shisa the Kitsi. Oh, no, the sway, done one lame. Mossen and. In Eldidine, wait in Taming stand still. Which temple are you from? He asked. And why are you bringing such a nasty character to my door? I am a poor monk from the Tang court, said Tripitaka, on my way to seek scriptures from Buddha in the western heaven. We were passing through here, and it was getting late. That is why we made so bold as to approach your great mansion and beg you for a night's lodging. We plan to leave tomorrow before it's light, and we beseech you not to deny our request. Though you may be a Tang man, the old man said, that nasty character is certainly no Tang man. Old fellow, cried Wukong in a loud voice. You really can't see, can you? The Tang man is my master, and I am his disciple. Of course, I'm no sugar man or honey man. I am the great sage, equal to heaven. The members of your family should recognize me. Moreover, I have seen you before. Where have you seen me before? When you were young, said Wukong. Didn't you gather firewood before my eyes? Didn't you haul vegetables before my face? The old man said, That's nonsense. Where did you live? And where was I? That I should have gathered firewood and hauled vegetables before your eyes. Only my son would talk nonsense, said Wukong. You really don't recognize me. Take a closer look. I am the great sage in the stone box of this mountain of two frontiers. You do look somewhat like him, said the old man, half recognizing the figure before him. But how did you get out? Wukong thereupon gave a thorough account of how the Bodhisattva had converted him, and how she had asked him to wait for the Tang monk to lift the tag for his deliverance. After that, the old man bowed deeply and invited Tripitaka in, calling for his aged wife and his children to come out and meet the guests. When he told them what had happened, everyone was delighted. Tea was then served, after which the old man asked Wukong, How old are you, great sage? And how old are you? Asked Wukong. I have lived foolishly for 130 years, said the old man. You are still my great-great-great-great-grandson, said Pilgrim. I can't remember when I was born, but I have spent over 500 years underneath this mountain. Yes, said the old man. I remember my great-grandfather saying that when this mountain dropped from the sky, it had a divine ape clamped underneath it. To think that you should have waited until now for your freedom. When I saw you in my childhood, you had grass on your head and mud on your face. But I wasn't afraid of you then. Now, without mud on your face and grass on your head, you seem a bit thinner. And with that huge piece of tiger skin draped around your waist? What great difference is there between you and a demon? When the members of his family heard this remark, they all roared with laughter. Being a rather decent fellow, that old man at once ordered a vegetarian meal to be prepared. Afterwards, Wukong said, What is your family name? Our humble family, said the old man, goes by the name of Chen. When Tripitaka heard this, he left his seat to salute him, saying, Old patron, you and I share the same illustrious clan. Master, said Pilgrim, your surname is Tang. How can it be that you and he share the same illustrious ancestors? Tripitaka said, The surname of my secular family is also Chen, and I come from the Juxian village, in the Hongnong district of Haizhu, in the Tang domain. My religious name is Chen Xuanzang. Because our great Tang Emperor Taizong made me his brother by decree, I took the name Tripitaka and used Tang as my surname. Hence, I'm called the Tang Monk." The old man was very pleased to hear that they had the same surname. "Old Chen," said Pilgrim, "I must trouble your family some more, for I haven't taken a bath for 500 years. Please go and boil some water, so that my master and I, his disciple, can wash ourselves. We shall thank you all the more when we leave." The old man at once gave the order for water to be boiled, and basins to be brought in with several lamps. As master and disciple sat before the lamps after their baths, Pilgrim said, "Old Chen, I still have one more favor to ask of you. Can you lend me a needle and some thread?" Of course," replied the old man. One of the amahs was told to fetch the needle and thread, which were then handed over to Pilgrim. Pilgrim, you see, had the keenest sight. He noticed that Tripitaka had taken off a shirt made of white cloth and had not put it on again after his bath. Pilgrim grabbed it and put it on himself. Taking off his tiger skin, he sewed the hems together, using a horseface fold, and fastened it round his waist again with the strand of rattan. He paraded in front of his master, saying, "How does old monkey look today compared with the way he looked yesterday?" "Very good," said Tripitaka. "Very good. Now you do look like a pilgrim. If you don't think that the shirt is too worn or old, you may keep it." "Thanks for the gift," said Wukong respectfully. He then went out to find some hay to feed the horse, after which master and disciple both retired with the old man and his household. The next morning, Wukong arose and woke up his master to get ready for the journey. Tripitaka dressed himself while Wukong put their luggage in order. They were about to leave when the old man brought in washing water and some vegetarian food, and so they did not set out until after the meal. Tripitaka rode his horse with Pilgrim leading the way. They journeyed by day and rested by night, taking food and drink according to their needs. Soon it was early winter. You see frost-blighted maples and the wizened trees. Few verdant pine and cypress still on the ridge. Budding plum blossoms spread their gentle scent. The brief, warm day. A little spring gift. But dying lilies yield to the lush, wild tea. A cold bridge struggles against an old tree's bough, and gurgling water flows in the winding brook. Gray clouds, snow-laden, float throughout the sky. The strong, cold wind tears at the sleeve. How does one bear this chilly might of night? Master and disciple had traveled for some time, when suddenly 6 men jumped out from the side of the road with much clamor, all holding long spears and short swords, sharp blades and strong bows. "Stop, monk," they cried. "Leave your horse and drop your bag at once, and we'll let you pass on alive." Tripitaka was so terrified that his soul left him, and his spirit fled. He fell from his horse, unable to utter a word. But Pilgrim lifted him up, saying, "Don't be alarmed, master. It's nothing really. Just some people coming to give us clothes and a travel allowance." "Wukong," said Tripitaka, "you must be a little hard of hearing. They told us to leave our bag and our horse, and you want to ask them for clothes and a travel allowance? You just stay here and watch our belongings," said Pilgrim, "and let old monkey confront them. We'll see what happens." Tripitaka said, "Even a good punch is no match for a pair of fists, and 2 fists can't cope with 4 hands. There are 6 big fellows over there, and you are such a tiny person. How can you have the nerve to confront them?" As he always had been audacious, Pilgrim did not wait for further discussion. He walked forward with arms folded and saluted the 6 men, saying, "Sirs, for what reason are you blocking the path of this poor monk?" "We are kings of the highway," said the men. philanthropic mountain lords. Our fame has long been known, though you seem to be ignorant of it. Leave your belongings at once, and you will be allowed to pass. If you but utter half a no, you'll be chopped to pieces. I have been also a great hereditary king and a mountain lord for centuries, said Pilgrim, but I have yet to learn of your illustrious names. So you really don't know, one of them said. Let's tell you, then. One of us is named Eye, that sees and delights. Another, ear that hears and rages. Another, nose that smells and loves. Another, tongue that tastes and desires. Another, mind that perceives and covets. And another, body that bears and suffers. You are nothing but 6 hairy brigands, said Wukong, laughing, who have failed to recognize in me a person who has left the family, your proper master. How dare you bar my way? Bring out the treasures you have stolen so that you and I can divide them into 7 portions. I'll spare you then. Hearing this, the robbers all reacted with rage and amusement, covetousness and fear, desire and anxiety. They rushed forward crying, "You reckless monk! You haven't a thing to offer us, and yet you want us to share our loot with you." Wielding spears and swords, they surrounded Pilgrim and hacked away at his head 70 or 80 times. Pilgrim stood in their midst and behaved as if nothing were happening. "What a monk," said one of the robbers. "He really does have a hard head." "Passably so," said Pilgrim, laughing. "But your hands must be getting tired from all that exercise. It's about time for old Monkey to take out his needle for a little entertainment." "This monk must be an acupuncture man in disguise," said the robber. "We're not sick. What's all this about using a needle?" Pilgrim reached into his ear and took out a tiny embroidery needle. One wave of it in the wind, and it became an iron rod with the thickness of a rice bowl. He held it in his hands, saying, "Don't run. Let old Monkey try his hand on you with this rod." The 6 robbers fled in all directions, but with great strides he caught up with them and rounded all of them up. He beat every one of them to death, stripped them of their clothes, and seized their valuables. Then Pilgrim came back smiling broadly and said, "You may proceed now, master. Those robbers have been exterminated by old Monkey." "That's a terrible thing you have done," said Tripitaka. "They may have been strong men on the highway, but they would not have been sentenced to death even if they had been caught and tried. If you have such abilities, you should have chased them away. Why did you slay them all? How can you be a monk when you take life without cause? We who have left the family should keep ants out of harm's way when we sweep the floor, and put shades on lamps for the love of moths. How can you kill them just like that, without regard for black or white? You showed no mercy at all. It's a good thing that we are here in the mountains, where any further investigation will be unlikely. But suppose someone offends you when we reach a city, and you perpetrate violence again, hitting people indiscriminately with that rod of yours. Would I be able to remain innocent and get away scot-free?" "Master," said Wukong, "if I hadn't killed them, they would have killed you." Tripitaka said, "As a priest, I would rather die than practice violence. If I were killed, there would be only one of me, but you slaughtered 6 persons. How can you justify that? If this matter were brought before a judge, and even if your old man were the judge, you certainly would not be able to justify your action." "To tell you the truth, master," said Pilgrim, "when I, old Monkey, was king on the Flower Fruit Mountain 500 years ago, I killed I don't know how many people. I would not have been a great sage, equal to heaven, if I had lived by what you are saying. It's precisely because you had neither scruples nor self-control, said Tripitaka. Unleashing your waywardness on earth and spreading outrage in heaven, that you had to undergo this ordeal of 500 years. Now that you have entered the fold of Buddhism, if you still insist on practicing violence and indulge in the taking of life as before, you are not worthy to be a monk, nor can you go to the Western heaven. You're wicked. You're just too wicked. Now this monkey had never in all his life been able to tolerate scolding. When he heard Tripitaka's persistent reprimand, he could not suppress the flames leaping up in his heart. If that's what you think, he said. If you think I'm not worthy to be a monk, nor can I go to the Western heaven, you needn't bother me further with your nagging. I'll leave and go back. Before Tripitaka had time to reply, Pilgrim was already so enraged that he leaped into the air, crying only, "Old monkey's off!" Tripitaka quickly raised his head to look, but the monkey had already disappeared, trailed only by a swishing sound fading fast toward the east. Left by himself, the priest could only shake his head and sigh. That fellow. He's so unwilling to be taught. I only said a few words to him. How could he vanish without a trace and go back just like that? Well. It must be also that I am destined not to have a disciple, or any other companion. For now I couldn't even call him or locate him if I wanted to. I might as well go on by myself. So, he was prepared to lay down his life and go toward the west, to be his own master, and on none rely. The elder had little alternative, but to pack up his bag and put it on the horse, which he did not even bother to mount. Holding his staff in one hand and the reins in the other, he set off sadly, toward the west. He had not traveled far when he saw an old woman before him on the mountain road, holding a silk garment and a cap with a floral design. When Tripitaka saw her approach, he hastened to pull his horse aside for her to pass. "Elder, where do you come from?" asked the old woman. "And why are you walking here all by yourself?" Tripitaka replied, "Your child was sent by the great king of the land of the East to seek true scriptures from the living Buddha in the Western heaven." "The Buddha of the West," said the old woman, "lives in the great temple of Thunderclap in the territory of India. And the journey there is 108,000 miles long. You are all by yourself, with neither a companion nor a disciple. How can you possibly think of going there?" "A few days ago," said Tripitaka, "I did pick up a disciple, a rather unruly and headstrong character. I scolded him a little, but he refused to be taught, and disappeared." The old woman said, "I have here a silk shirt and a flower cap inlaid with gold, which used to belong to my son. He had been a monk for only 3 days, when unfortunately he died. I have just finished mourning him at the temple, where I was given these things by his master to be kept in his memory. Father, since you have a disciple, I'll give the shirt and the cap to you." "I'm most grateful for your lavish gifts," said Tripitaka. "But my disciple has left. I dare not take them." "Where did he go?" asked the old woman. Tripitaka replied, "I heard a swishing sound heading toward the east." "My home is not too far away in the east," said the old woman. "And he may be going there? I have a spell which is called the True Words, for controlling the mind, or the tight fillet spell. You must memorize it secretly. Commit it firmly to your memory, and don't let anyone learn of it. I'll try to catch up with him and persuade him to come back and follow you. When he returns, give him the shirt and the cap to wear, and if he again refuses to obey you, recite the spell silently. He will not dare do violence or leave you again." On hearing these words, Tripitaka bowed his head to thank her. The old woman changed herself into a shaft of golden light and vanished toward the east. Then, Tripitaka realized that it was the Bodhisattva Guanyin who had taught him the true words. He hurriedly picked up a few pinches of earth with his fingers and scattered them like incense. Bowing reverently toward the east, he then took the shirt and the cap and hid them in his bag. Sitting beside the road, he began to recite the true words for controlling the mind. After a few times, he knew it thoroughly by heart. But we shall speak no more of him for the time being. We now tell you about Wukong, who, having left his master, headed straight toward the Eastern Ocean with a single cloud somersault. He stopped his cloud, opened up a path in the water, and went directly to the Water Crystal Palace. Learning of his arrival, the Dragon King came out to welcome him. After they had exchanged greetings and sat down, the Dragon King said, "I heard recently that the ordeal of the great sage had been completed, and I apologize for not having congratulated you yet. I suppose you have again taken occupancy in your immortal mountain and returned to the ancient cave." "I was so inclined," said Wukong. "But I became a monk instead." "What sort of a monk?" asked the Dragon King. "I was indebted to the Bodhisattva of South Sea," said Pilgrim, "who persuaded me to do good and seek the truth. I was to follow the Tang monk from the land of the East to go worship Buddha in the West. Since entering the fold of Buddhism, I was given also the name Pilgrim." "That is indeed praiseworthy," said the Dragon King. "You have, as we say, left the wrong and followed the right. You have been created anew by setting your mind on goodness. But if that's the case, why are you not going toward the west, but are returning eastward instead?" Pilgrim laughed and said, "That Tang monk knows nothing of human nature. There were a few ruffians who wanted to rob us, and I slew them all. But that Tang monk couldn't stop nagging me, telling me over and over how wrong I was. Can you imagine old monkey putting up with that sort of tedium? I just left him. I was on my way back to my mountain when I decided to come visit you and ask for a cup of tea. Thanks for coming." "Thanks for coming," exclaimed the Dragon King. At that moment, the dragon sons and grandsons presented them with aromatic tea. When they finished the tea, Pilgrim happened to turn around and saw hanging behind him on the wall a painting on the presentation of shoes at Yi Bridge. "What's this all about?" asked Pilgrim. The Dragon King replied, "The incident depicted in the painting took place some time after you were born, and you may not recognize what it was. The threefold presentation of shoes at Yi Bridge." "What do you mean by the threefold presentation of shoes?" asked Pilgrim. "The immortal in the painting," said the Dragon King, "was named Huang Shigong, and the young man kneeling in front of him was called Zhang Liang. Shigong was sitting on the Yi Bridge when suddenly one of his shoes fell off and dropped under the bridge. He asked Zhang Liang to fetch it, and the young man quickly did so, putting it back on for him as he knelt there. This happened 3 times. Since Zhang Liang did not display the slightest sign of pride or impatience, he won the affection of Shigong, who imparted to him that night a Celestia manual and told him to support the house of Han. Afterwards, Zhang Liang made his plans sitting in a military tent to achieve victories 1,000 miles away. When the Han dynasty was established, he left his post and went into the mountains, where he followed the Taoist, Master Red Pine, and became enlightened in the way of immortality. Great sage, if you do not accompany the Tang monk, if you are unwilling to exercise diligence or to accept instruction, you will remain a bogus immortal after all. Don't think that you'll ever acquire the fruits of truth. Wukong listened to these words and fell silent for some time. The Dragon King said, "Great sage, you must make the decision yourself. It's unwise to allow momentary comfort to jeopardize your future." "Not another word," said Wukong. "Old Monkey will go back to accompany him, that's all." "Delighted," the Dragon King said. "If that's your wish, I dare not detain you. Instead, I ask the great sage to show his mercy at once and not permit his master to wait any longer." When Pilgrim heard this exhortation to leave, he bounded right out of the oceanic region. Mounting the clouds, he left the Dragon King. On his way, he ran right into the Bodhisattva of South Sea. "Son Wukong," said the Bodhisattva, "why did you not listen to me and accompany the Tang monk? What are you doing here?" Pilgrim was so taken aback that he saluted her on top of the clouds. "I'm most grateful for the kind words of the Bodhisattva," he said. "A monk from the Tang court did appear, lifted the seal, and saved my life. I became his disciple, but he blamed me for being too violent. I walked out on him for a little while, but I'm going back right now to accompany him." "Go quickly then," said the Bodhisattva, "before you change your mind again." They finished speaking, and each went on his way. In a moment, our pilgrim saw the Tang monk sitting dejectedly at the side of the road. He approached him and said, "Master, why are you not on the road? What are you doing here?" "Where have you been?" asked Tripitaka, looking up. "Your absence has forced me to sit here and wait for you, not daring to walk or move." Pilgrim replied, "I just went to the home of the old Dragon King at the Eastern Ocean to ask for some tea." "Disciple," said Tripitaka, "those who have left the family should not lie. It was less than an hour since you left me, and you claim to have had tea at the home of the Dragon King?" "To tell you the truth," said Pilgrim, laughing, "I know how to cloud somersault, and a single somersault will carry me 108,000 miles. That's why I can go and return in no time at all." Tripitaka said, "Because I spoke to you a little sharply, you were offended and left me in a rage. With your ability, you could go and ask for some tea, but a person like me has no other prospect but to sit here and endure hunger. Do you feel comfortable about that?" "Master," said Pilgrim, "if you're hungry, I'll go beg some food for you." "There's no need to beg," said Tripitaka, "for I still have in my bag some dried goods given to me by the mother of Guardian Lu. Fetch me some water in that bowl. I'll eat some food, and we can start out again." Pilgrim went to untie the bag and found some biscuits made of unrefined flour, which he took out and handed over to the master. He then saw light glowing from a silk shirt and a flower cap inlaid with gold. "Did you bring this garment and cap from the land of the East?" he asked. "I wore these in my childhood," said Tripitaka, nonchalantly. "If you wear the hat, you'll know how to recite scriptures without having to learn them. If you put on the garment, you'll know how to perform rituals without having to practice them." "Dear Master," said Pilgrim, "let me put them on." "They may not fit you," said Tripitaka, "but if they do, you may wear them." Pilgrim thereupon took off his old shirt made of white cloth and put on the silk shirt, which seemed to have been made especially for him. Then he put on the cap as well. When Tripitaka saw that he had put on the cap, he stopped eating the dried goods and began to recite the tight fillet spell, silently. "Oh, my head," cried Pilgrim. "It hurts. It hurts." The master went through the recitation several times without ceasing, and the pain was so intense that Pilgrim was rolling on the ground, his hands gripping the flower cap inlaid with gold. Fearing that he might break the gold fillet, Tripitaka stopped reciting, and the pain ceased. Pilgrim touched his head with his hand, and felt that it was tightly bound by a thin metal band. It could be neither pulled off nor ripped apart, for it had, as it were, taken root on his head. Taking the needle out of his ear, he rammed it inside the fillet and started prying madly. Afraid that he might break the fillet with his prying, Tripitaka started his recitation again, and Pilgrim's head began to hurt once more. It was so painful that he did cartwheels and somersaults. His face and even his ears turned red, his eyes bulged, and his body grew weak. When the master saw his appearance, he was moved to break off his recitation, and the pain stopped as before. "My head," said Pilgrim. "The master has put a spell on it." "I was just saying the tight fillet sutra," said Tripitaka. "Since when did I put a spell on you?" "Recite it some more and see what happens," said Pilgrim. Tripitaka accordingly began to recite, and the Pilgrim immediately started to hurt. "Stop! Stop!" he cried. "I hurt the moment you begin to recite. How do you explain that?" "Will you listen now to my instructions?" asked Tripitaka. "Yes, I will," replied Pilgrim. "And never be unruly again?" "I dare not," said Pilgrim. Although he said that with his mouth, Pilgrim's mind was still devising evil. One wave of the needle, and it had the thickness of a rice bowl. He aimed it at the Tang monk and was about to slam it down on him. The priest was so startled that he went through the recitation 2 or 3 more times. Falling to the ground, the monkey threw away the iron rod and could not even raise his hands. "Master," he said, "I've learned my lesson. Stop. Please stop." "How dare you be so reckless," said Tripitaka, "that you should want to strike me." "I wouldn't dare strike you," said Pilgrim. "But let me ask you something. Who taught you this magic?" "It was an old woman," said Tripitaka, "who imparted it to me a few moments ago." Growing very angry, Pilgrim said, "You needn't say anything more. The old woman had to be that Guanyin. Why did she want me to suffer like this? I'm going to South Sea to beat her up." "If she had taught me this magic," said Tripitaka, "she had to know it even before I did. If you go looking for her, and she starts her recitation, won't you be dead?" Pilgrim saw the logic of this, and dared not remove himself. Indeed, he had no alternative but to kneel in contrition and plead with Tripitaka, saying, "Master, this is her method of controlling me, allowing me no alternative but to follow you to the west. I'll not go to bother her, but you must not regard this spell as a plaything for frequent recitation either. I'm willing to accompany you without ever entertaining the thought of leaving again." "If that's so," said Tripitaka, "help me onto the horse and let's get going." At that point, Pilgrim gave up all thoughts of disobedience or rebellion. Eagerly, he tugged at his silk shirt and went to gather the luggage together, and they headed again toward the west. We do not know what is to be told after their departure. Let's listen to the explanation in the next chapter.